Hey guys, it's Son of a Bob. I am trying to do a video called You Can't Fly Your Drone in Texas, and this is the 8th take on this today. These things keep happening, messages, or I get partway through or all the way through and realize I don't like what I just did. This video was originally videoed about 2.5 weeks ago. It was a little over 30 minutes long. It was chock full of great information. And I did it, I edited it, I rendered it, I encoded it, I uploaded it to YouTube, and realized it made me hate my life. So I took it down. And the next day I did it again. It was around 20 minutes long, and I thought, hallelujah, that's much better. I edited it, I rendered it, I encoded it, I uploaded it to YouTube, and deleted it because it just made me hate my life for 10 minutes less. So it's been 2 weeks. I'm going to give it another try. I'm going to cut out a lot of the extraneous stuff. I'm going to distill everything down that I can. The whole point of this is, if you watch very many drone channels, and you may have heard people say you need to know not only the federal law, the FAA regulations, but you need to know your state and local laws. And I was always kind of like, who cares? Federal law preempts state law, supposedly, and I don't know why I felt that way. I am a concealed carry holder. I do carry at all times, and when we go on vacations, I look up laws in the states that we're going to or passing through, because I don't want to violate their laws and get in trouble, because if you get in trouble as far as concealed carry goes, then you lose your ability to conceal carry. So I finally looked up the laws for the state of Texas, and there are a bunch of laws for the state of Texas. I found House Bill number 1643 and 1424. I found Senate Bill number 840. And all of this goes into the Texas law governing and unmanned aerial vehicles. It's Chapter 423 of the Government Code. And there's a lot of stuff, and worse than there just being a lot of stuff, there is a lot of confusing stuff that doesn't necessarily make sense. So I looked up papers. Here's a PDF on frequently asked questions that's on the utsystem.edu site. Excuse me. And then I found this paper by Robbie Chapman, who presented it at the 2014 Prosecutor Seminar. And this is actually my favorite. It's called Attack of the Drones. It's well written. I wish I had been there. I wish I could sit down and talk to him. Why, you ask? Since he's a prosecutor and they tend to be the ones prosecuting you in court. Well, because there's great information in there, and I want the prosecutors in the state of Texas to be well informed on drone laws to keep nonsense cases from getting to court. So as far as FAA regulations go, I'm going to assume you all know the FAA regulations if you're flying drones. If you're flying as a hobbyist, meaning you don't intend to make any money off of it, including posting your videos on YouTube, to a channel that's monetized, or videos that are monetized, then you're flying as a hobbyist. And the FAA regulations are really more suggestions that they urge you to adhere to. Now, if you're flying as a Part 107 pilot, making money, putting it on your YouTube channel with the video being monetized, these regulations are important and you need to know them. So let's get into the state of Texas. And I wrote www.austintech.org at the top of this page because I spent a lot of time there. It's a very well put together website, and they cover a lot of this stuff, probably much better than I do, but I didn't see any videos, so that's the only advantage you were having here. But if you distill down all this stuff in the state of Texas, essentially it is telling you that there's a lot of clinical, I must think I'm at work, a lot of critical, RC break. Only problem with drinking RC while you're doing this is you tend to burp. So if I do, I apologize in advance. Critical. What is critical infrastructure? And that goes through several pages of what is critical infrastructure that you cannot fly over. Obvious things like petroleum refineries, electrical power generating facilities, chemical plants, water intake structures, telecommunications central switching office, and on and on and on. An exception to this if you are under contract with or otherwise acting under the direction or behalf of the federal government, the state or governmental entity, or law enforcement agency, or otherwise under contract with whoever owns that property, like to do tower inspections and that sort of thing. So don't lift off the ground if you're going to fly over critical infrastructure. Also, you cannot capture images with the intent to conduct surveillance, and if that activity is not exempted under the law, you could face a Class C misdemeanor. And it can be upgraded to a Class B misdemeanor. And you keep seeing this a lot, capturing an image with the intent to conduct surveillance. Now, this paper was interesting because she is defining, under Title 49 United States Code 40103, she is saying the federal government alone, I keep saying it's a she and I don't know why. I don't mean anything by it. I think maybe I saw this person's name when I downloaded it and that's just stuck in my mind. So anyway, this person is saying the federal government alone has control over navigable airspace. And what is navigable airspace? It is that airspace above the minimum altitudes of flight, including airspace needed for takeoff and landing, and that is generally 500 feet or 1,000 feet. And then in bold print it says states retain the ability to control airspace below navigable airspace. Now that would mean at a minimum below 500 feet, states own the airspace. Well, Mr. Chapman's paper so aptly points out, using the same Title 49 United States Code 40103, same exact code, that FAA regulation extends from the ground upwards. So from the second you leave the ground at all, upwards is FAA airspace. So this is the sort of confusing stuff that gets out there and makes people get into arguments because they know they've read this. Well, it's not true. It's bull caca. So then the law goes on to say the places you can fly your drone permissibly are in public places where the drone is no higher than 8 feet off the ground. Okay, let's imagine I go to South Padre Island. It's a beautiful blue sky summer day, and there's beautiful women out there in their skimpy bathing suits, and some of them are taking their straps off because they want to get rid of their tan lines, and they're folding their bikini bottoms down as far as they can to get rid of their tan lines. And I put my drone up and I'm flying no more than 8 feet off the ground. So let's say I'm going 7 feet off the ground, and I go flying not over them because that's FAA regulation. You don't fly directly over people, but say I'm flying right in front of them sideways with my camera pointing down, so I'm getting great 4K resolution video of these beautiful women. How long do you think my drone's going to stay in the air? So, I mean, flying in public places where the drone is no higher than 8 feet off the ground doesn't make a lot of sense. Plus, my Phantom 4 with its blades spinning, its props spinning, are going to do a lot of damage to somebody if it runs right into their face. Where else can you fly your drone? Well, you can do it to make recordings on public property, of course, as long as you're no more than 8 feet off the ground, and of individuals on public property or with the consent of the owner or legal resident of the property. So in the state of Texas, you can't fly over real property, which is property that's owned by somebody, without their permission. It's there in the law. You can't fly over them conducting surveillance with your little camera. So by the time you get to the end of all this, you think, I can't take off with my drone. I mean, it's stupid unless I'm going to fly 7 feet above the ground, which is not what a drone is made for, in case you don't know. So let's go back to Mr. Chapman's paper quickly. I love this paper. I wish I had time to go over it slide by slide. What he talks is He does. He talks about this. He says it's an offense, the illegal use of unmanned aircraft to capture images. It says a person commits an offense if the person uses an unmanned aircraft to capture an image of an individual or privately owned real property. That's what it keeps saying throughout all of this. If you're capturing an image of an individual or privately owned real property, which is pretty much wherever you go, with the intent to conduct surveillance on the individual or property captured in the image. So finally, a light goes off my head. What is surveillance? Am I conducting surveillance? And I go back through all of this stuff, and it's not defined anywhere. What the heck is surveillance? Well, it turns out Mr. Chapman addresses this. Let's see if I can find where he addresses this. Oh, he does. He says, what is surveillance? He says there is no definition in Chapter 423, which is this government code state law regarding use of unmanned aircraft. Well, why the heck would they not define surveillance? It seems like in court it'd be nice to have a clear definition of surveillance if that's what you're being accused of. Well, it turns out they don't need to clearly define it in here because there is a standard and widely accepted definition under Black's law of what surveillance is. And it is the close observation or listening of a person or place in the hope of gathering evidence. Let me say that again in case I said it wrong the first time. It is the close observation or listening of a person or place in the hope of gathering evidence. So, if I'm putting up my drone and I'm flying over somebody's property, but I'm not intending to gather evidence or do any close surveillance of them, if I'm flying over the property and I see them walking around or doing whatever they're doing, but I'm not trying to conduct surveillance, then they've got no beef with me. It's not against the law. So finally it starts to make a little bit of sense. As long as you're following FAA regulations, you're not flying over critical infrastructure, and you're not intending to conduct surveillance, then you are good to fly. Now, when in doubt, ask. So, let's go back to the scantily clad bathing person in their backyard. Let's say they're out getting, say they're nude sunbathing. You didn't know that. You flew over your 4K drone at 100 feet, caught 4K video. Well, first off, you shouldn't use that. You should just delete it. And that is one of the defenses to prosecution, is once you saw something like this, you deleted it. However, if you put it up on YouTube under a interesting things caught on drone compilation type of thing, and here you are in post-production zooming in on this nude person in their backyard, that's malicious. That's where they can take you to court and sue your behind, and they will win. So just use common sense and decency. If you capture something like that that shouldn't be there, don't archive it. Get rid of it. Delete it. Certainly do not use it. So I think that basically covers everything. I've done this so many times I can't remember if I included the things I wanted to, if I repeated things twice. If I did, I'm sorry. If I didn't, I'm sorry. Just essentially know the FAA regulations. I think I already did this once, so I'll have to choose which version I like the best. Know the FAA regulations, know your state and local ordinances, understand the law. Ask a lawyer if you have a question. That's the expensive way around, but you can get on some websites and they'll answer questions like that. And just be a good person with your drone. Don't be malicious. Don't distribute images that might offend or embarrass somebody. And we're all in this together. We want to survive. We don't want a ton of laws coming down against us. So let's do the right thing. If you like this, like it. If you disliked it, I'm sorry, and you can do this if you need to. Share it if you want to get this information around, and subscribe if you're not subscribed. Thanks for taking the time. I don't know how long this one turned out to be. I hope it's around 10 minutes, no more than 15. And anyway, thanks for spending your time with me. I'll catch you later. being a concealed carry person, that's not right. Having a license to conceal carry